Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. I'm Mark Elliott. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. Over 20 years in the financial world, and the team at Safeguard is here to help you figure out where you are on that road to retirement, create the big picture blueprint for you, giving you clarity and direction. Income, do you have enough? Where's it going to come from? Do you know how much you need? Investments, too much risk, not enough risk, the right amount of risk. Taxes, what about the Roth world? You need to look into that. Some do, some don't. Everybody's situation is unique. Healthcare, long-term care. And then you kind of wrap it all up with legacy planning. All of that is a part of the big picture blueprint. Well, wait, you didn't talk about Social Security and Medicare. Well, Social Security is in the income part. Medicare, it's in the healthcare part. So a lot of moving pieces that are on our shoulders when we get to retirement. Rick and the team are here to help you figure out where you are. Do I have enough? Do I not? If I don't, what can I do? If I do I need to keep working? It's up to you. I mean, those would be great things to know. 800-700-1980 is the number to chat with Rick and the team. 800-700-1980. You can always find out more about Rick, Reed, Eddie, and the team. Safeguardinvestment.com. Safeguardinvestment.com. Hey, Rick, how are you?
Oh, doing real good, Mark. Pleasure to be here with you.
You know, we're going to talk about the transfer of wealth. And you go to 1901 to 1927. That's the greatest generation. Then you have, and that would have been my grandparents. Then you go to the silent generation. Well, that's my parents, 1928 to 1945. Then you go to the baby boomers. That's my generation. Then you go to Gen X. Is that you? Are you a Gen Xer?
Yeah, Gen X, yeah. Was that 65 to 80?
65 to 80. Then 81 to 95 or 81 to 96, somewhere in there. They're conflicting numbers there, but it's millennials are next. Well, this baby boomer generation, the silent generation, are leaving money to the next generation. And it's $90 trillion. 90 trillion with a T is what they're saying is going to start transferring from a generation to another. And this one is really going to be crazy. The one thing that's interesting about this, so I'm thinking if silent generation left money, it would go to the baby boomers. Baby boomers leave money, it goes to Gen X. Gen X leaves money, it goes to millennials. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying this $90 trillion is going to be bypassing, and it's going all the way to millennials. I don't know if that really matters, who gets it, but somebody's going to inherit $90 trillion. When you're helping your clients at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, Rick, deal with how they want to leave, their legacy, their estate, all that kind of stuff, and how they want to do it, that is a part of the big picture blueprint, is it not?
Yes, it is. And it covers a variety of different areas. So depending upon, a client's parameters will determine how to best leave the assets to the children. So, for example, obviously if they're concerned about the assets going through probate, then we can, always talk about trusts and wills, and we have an attorney that can create those documents for them. But then it even gets more involved in situations where, let's say, God forbid, the client has a child that maybe is a special needs child or a family member that's special needs, and they need to maximize what they're going to leave to that child in the most tax efficient manner possible. Then there's strategies that we use in order for that child to receive those funds and make sure that it doesn't interfere with any government subsidies and things like that they may be receiving. So we don't want to do these things willy-nilly. The other thing too is that, again, depending upon a client's goals, we can also make sure that there's strategies where they can receive this money in the most tax efficient manner possible. The other thing too is sometimes, we have clients that have children that that they need to put in like a spendthrift provision. And that's a scenario where they may have one child that's great with money, another one that's not so good with money. And they're like, hey, listen, I don't want them getting all the money at once. Maybe I want to dole this out over a period of time to that child. Sometimes we run into scenarios where maybe there's a child that maybe has an addiction issue, or you'd be surprised all the scenarios we run into. So rather than doing things willy-nilly, it's real important that, you sit down with, a firm like us where we've seen so many different scenarios and we can talk to you, ask you the appropriate questions, figure out what you're trying to accomplish with the children moving forward, and then we can design a plan that fits your particular situation. Again, because with different children, you may want to do things different ways, and we really want to fine tune it and make sure that not too much goes to the government and all the rest of it.
And that's really the idea behind this, is that you have an idea of what you want to happen to your stuff, to your money when you're no longer here. And Rick and the team are definitely on board. If you're like, you know what, instead of leaving them a huge chunk of money, what if I just took the whole family to Hawaii? I mean, I did something fun that would create lasting memories. Rick has a lot of clients that do that as well. If you'd like to talk about any or all of this, just give the team a call. There's no cost. Rick would be happy to sit down and have a conversation. It is 800-700-1980, 800-700-1980, totally complimentary, no cost to you. And if you think about it, if you're leaving money to somebody, if you look at the millennials, that's 81 to 95, born 1981 to 1995, which means what the oldest millennial turned 43 this year. The youngest will turn the age of 30 next year. So if you're in that kind of age bracket, and all of a sudden you're raising families, you're going crazy kind of at that point, probably not ready to inherit a ton of money and try to figure out what to do with it. That's where the planning comes in. So if you have a client that wants to leave money to their children or their grandchildren, do you kind of help that next generation come up with a strategy, or do people typically just wing it and hope for the best?
With some of the clients, we definitely do that. And unfortunately, with some of the kids, we have to wait until the parents pass on. And then when the kids inherit the money, then we'll have them come in and help them strategize as much as possible. But what I would say is that it is important, if I had my choice, and had every client be able to do this, is definitely talk to the kids about it. And here's the other thing too, is a lot of times the kids don't even want to discuss this with the parents. This is the last thing that they want to talk about is mom and dad passing away. And, they're like, mom, dad, spend it, enjoy it, whatever. But, we got to talk about reality. So it's important for you at least to have a discussion with the kids and make sure they're aware of where things are at, how things are distributed, and at least bare minimum, hey, if anything happens, here's who you need to call. Here's what you need to do. Here's some basic instructions to follow. And then what they do is, our clients, their children will call us, and then we can actually, help them fill out forms. We can help them settle the estate. Documents need to be notarized. We can guide them through all that. The other thing that we do is, we can actually show them, hey, depending upon, where these monies are at, whether it's an IRA or not IRA, we can show the kids, hey, based on their scenario, what's the best way for them to receive these monies where they may mitigate taxes as well. So the sooner they get involved, great. I know that sometimes, getting them involved in that type of planning, though, is like pulling teeth.
Well, you think of the silent generation, they were called that for a reason. My grandparents probably never told my mom or my dad or what they were going to be getting if they were going to get anything. My mom, she's in that group that, I think she wants everybody to know kind of, here are my plans, here are my wishes. She's 87. So she's kind of more on board with that. I am terrible. I'm 64, almost 65, Rick. I don't have a will or anything, but I don't need it until I'm getting ready to die, correct?
Yeah, exactly. When you're on your deathbed, right at the last moment, we have the guy there having you sign all the docs. Yeah.
And that's really what we do, isn't it? Most of us, we just kind of kick it down the road, kick the can down the road, when really you could just do LegalZoom and do a will. At least you got something in place. You're not really paying. I think, here's my theory, Rick, and I've said it before. If you love your family, make sure you're doing this planning. If you hate them, leave them a mess. Because if you don't do anything, that's what you're actually leaving them, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, because everything's going to be, held up in probate. Then you're dealing with different institutions, and God forbid you got different accounts all going to probate. And then if you have properties in different states, now you have the scenario where you may have different probate proceedings in different states. So not only do you have, let's say, for example, you have, you're going through a probate proceeding in California, but because they have, property in Texas, now maybe they got to go and go through probate in Texas as well. So now you're just magnifying the issue.
And probate's about 7% basically, kind of a thing?
I've been hearing everything from, based on what the attorneys are telling us, it's anywhere, depending on the size of the estate, it could be anywhere from 2 to 7% of the estate. Again, just depending on the size, and there's so many variables that go into it. And God forbid someone contests, then there's that can drive up costs. There's a variety of things that go into it.
If you have your beneficiaries, you can skip probate with the things that you can use beneficiaries for, I believe.
Yeah. So for example, like with your IRAs, your 401ks, annuities, life insurance, things like that, those types of accounts automatically avoid probate. So as long as the beneficiaries are set up correctly, they will avoid the probate process. The other thing too is with your non-retirement accounts, let's just say regular, investment accounts, savings, things like that, CDs, whatever that are non-retirement accounts, you can set those up as well to avoid probate as long as you properly title those accounts. Some institutions, I believe the banks use POD, which just means pass on death. Brokerage institutions use TOD, which means transfer on death. And as long as those accounts have those designations, it will avoid the probate process. And if I can add one other caveat to that is as long as you have your primary and then contingent beneficiary, maybe those will be the kids, they will be able to receive the money avoiding probate. The only time you may not want to do it like that is if, let's just say, for example, you have a special needs child and you need to make sure that it needs to go into the trust and doled out through the trust, or maybe your child's underage and you have special provisions on how they should be receiving that money. So again, by sitting down with us, or even just giving us a quick call, we can talk about your situation, let you know what you can do, what you should be doing, or whether it's a trust or not, or whatever. We can let you know what's going to work best in your situation.
And there's no cost to have a conversation with Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. The number again is 800-700-1980, 800-700-1980. Now, it would be nice if we could, on our deathbed, fill out all the forms we needed, but that may not be the case. So you need to pre-plan for a lot of this. And that's certainly where Rick and the team can walk you through, because everybody's situation is unique. Everybody's hopes and dreams and how they want to leave things will have different ideas on that. Rick and the team are here to help you. 800-700-1980. Back with more of the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group right after this.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. It is 800-700-1980. If you have questions, you have concerns, we're talking about wills, trusts, powers of attorneys today on the program. So if you have questions about any of that, you want to talk with Rick, it's 800-700-1980. You can always go to the website to learn more, safeguardinvestment.com. All right, we're talking about, how do we leave money behind? How do we leave it to the next generation? And certainly the key is that you have a plan. You've actually got it written down. What goes to whom? How does it work? Is it in a trust? Is it a will? Powers of attorney? There's probate if you have just a will. So, Rick, walk us through. First, I think wills versus trust is something I don't really quite get. Powers of attorney, you've talked about that before on the program. Powers of attorney for finances, because you can't pay the bills because you just had a car wreck and you're not available to make those decisions right now. You need your spouse or you need your family member to be able to help pay the bills while you're incapacitated, if you will. But you have powers of attorney for finance. You have powers of attorney for health care. You have beneficiaries on certain tools in your retirement tool belt, and others don't have beneficiaries. There's just a lot going on. Clear it up for us in our final 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm going to say. Number one, a lot of people do ask me that question. Hey, Rick, what's the difference between a will and a trust? And I'll just give you a quick synopsis. The will is basically a document that, you write down just saying, hey, listen, something happens to me and the wife. Here's how I want the assets to go. But the will doesn't necessarily avoid probate. What happens is, especially in California, probate is started, and then the will is just, once probate is completed, then that's when the will steps in, and then the state of California can say, okay, now that we completed probate, we'll go ahead and distribute the will, the assets according to the will that you wrote. So it doesn't necessarily avoid probate. Where the trust comes in is that the trust is actually a legal entity that you are creating, and you're putting the assets into the trust. So the trust owns the assets. You're the owner and controller of the trust, and then you can put somebody as backup if something happens to you. So in essence, again, to explain it real simply, when you pass on, technically you don't own the assets, it's the trust that owns the assets. So there's nothing to probate. The person that's in charge steps up, whether it be one of the kids or a family member, whoever it is, steps up and can distribute those assets according to the trust, completely avoiding the probate process.
Now,
So
that
that's
trust
what
thing, I
really
hear a lot
was.
of times people say, well, I have a trust, and then somebody passes away and they're like, well, they never put anything in the trust. I mean, there's some steps involved in that, I would imagine.
Yes, of course. Yeah, because if you don't put the assets into the trust, well, then the trust is useless. It doesn't do anything for you. So you wasted a bunch of money. So, the deed of your home, all that needs to go into the trust. And then depending what type of investments you have, certain investments go into it, certain investments don't go into it. So again, this is where it's so important that, you sit down with a firm like ours that does this every day, and we work directly with an estate planning attorney that specializes in this. So that way we can sit down with you and say, okay, based on your particular scenario, what you're trying to accomplish, here are the assets that need to go in the trust. Here are some of the assets that we don't need to put into the trust. And we can, go through the finer details on that with you. So that way you're maximizing it in the most advantageous way possible.
800-700-1980 if you'd like to chat with Rick and the team. You got some concerns, you got some questions maybe. As simple as that. 800-700-1980. What about the powers of attorney that you talk about on this program?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's really going to be key, because, there's some people probably listening to the show right now and they're like, the trust, it really does nothing for me. It's really more about the kids, and they're going to keep procrastinating that, which is true. At the end of the day, the trust really doesn't do anything for you per se. It's really more to make things easier to go to the family, your beneficiaries. However, what is critically important for you to have and protects you directly while you're alive is making sure that you have the power of attorney for asset management, so someone can handle financial affairs for you, and also one for healthcare. Now, some people might say, well, Rick, you know what? My wife and I, we're jointly on everything. So why would we need a power of attorney for asset management? If something happens to me, she can manage the financial affairs and vice versa. Here's what people tend to forget. Your IRAs, your 401ks, your SEPs, your KEOs, your TSP, your 403Bs, 457s, you don't own that jointly with your spouse. So now if for some reason, God forbid, you're in an accident, you're in the hospital, and your spouse needs to access your 401k or your retirement account to make some adjustments, or maybe they need to draw some money out to pay bills or whatever, you don't own that jointly. So now when you call up that broker, they're going to say, they say, hey, listen, I need to pull $5,000 out of my husband's IRA to cover some medical expenses. They're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't own that jointly with your spouse. Do you have a power of attorney? And so now, the common response back to the broker is, well, what are you talking about? I'm primary beneficiary on this thing. His response back is going to be, well, that only works when he passes away. While he's alive, you need the power of attorney. And then, of course, what dovetails into that is, let's say you guys are, in the middle of a real estate transaction and the assets are in escrow, and now documents need to be signed. Your spouse is not there. Now you may hold up that whole transaction because you don't have a power of attorney. The notary is going to be like, well, where's your husband? Oh, he's in the hospital. Well, do you have power of attorney? So again, that's going to save you there. The other thing too is making sure that you have a medical directive, because the medical directive is going to allow you to appoint whoever you want to make medical decisions for you in the event you cannot do it yourself. And then what we do is we even take it a step further with our clients, where we include a quality of life directive where you can medically choose how you want to be treated under a variety of different scenarios. So that way, especially when there's more than one child involved, keep in mind, they don't always agree on which way they should go with mom and dad. One child might say, hey, listen, we should go this way with dad, this way with mom, and they're arguing about it. So with the quality life directive that we give our clients, they can ahead of time choose how they want to be medically treated under a variety of different scenarios: pain control, do not resuscitate clauses, CPR, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, all those different things. And then that way, under most any condition, the kids can go to this document, say, okay, this is how mom wants to be treated. This is how dad wants to be treated. Less likely for them to argue or debate about because you wrote down your wishes on those documents. And that's what's really going to protect you personally.
Yeah, because those are things that happened before we have passed away. The
Right.
wills and the trust are kind of us taking control of things from the grave to a degree, I suppose. But, you think about it, if somebody has a company and they've got kids and maybe one wants to be a part of the company, the others don't, that can be kind of confusing. You have a ranch or a farm or something like that, and you're wanting to leave. Some kids want it, some don't. I mean, there's a lot of things that you really have to walk your clients through, and I'm sure you get some super complicated cases, and you get some that are really easy.
Yeah, what we do is we actually we've created, with the help of our clients over the years, based on their experiences, a document called a survivor's guide. And what we do, this is a document that we give to our clients. And what it does is it gives like the kids almost like instructions on how to settle the estate. Because the challenge, like even if, let's say they're in the hospital, they need somebody to handle financial affairs, we can, in those instructions, we can tell them where the most important documents are. We can tell them, hey, listen, you know what? For all the personal expenses, take it out of this checking account. If the checking account runs low, go to the saves account. Don't pull the money out of my IRA or my 401k where I'm going to get hit with, taxes or penalties. So we can instruct the kids so that way they know exactly how to handle your affairs. So when you're ready to take control again, there's not a big mess to clean up. And then, of course, with our clients, if that ever happens, the kids can always give us a call. We can guide them, help them, advise them. And we don't charge for that. It's just part of the services that we provide to our clients. So again, when they're ready to take control again, not a big mess to clean up. Most things are going to be in order when they're ready to handle things again. So if anybody listening to the show right now has any questions on any of these things or about your specific situation, even if you just want to, set up a 15-minute strategy call where you give me a call, maybe you want to call me on the phone and ask me some of these questions, or maybe you want to sit down for a 45-minute consultation, I'd be happy to offer that, no charge, your checkbooks and all that behind. But like I always say on the radio show, if you give me about 45 minutes, I'll be able to give you 2 ideas that'll enhance whatever it is that you're doing, and it'll cost you nothing to do. So just give us a call, 800-700-1980. Again, our toll-free number is 800-700-1980.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC.